So, welcome. My name is Paul Nolan, as you can probably tell by the sign here, and it's great to be here in Belgium, my first time in Belgium actually, so I'm enjoying your rain instead of the English rain. And yeah, great, so I'm going to talk to you for the next sort of 45 minutes or so about getting that techno sound. So obviously there are many different forms of techno, so it's a bit of a wide, kind of broad description, but it allows me to be quite wide and quite varied with it. And what I thought I would concentrate on in this first masterclass, I'm doing another one later on as well, 4:30, which is more sound design based, is I want to concentrate on drum grooves, which obviously with techno, as we know, the drums are the music in effect. And there's one of these really classic questions that I get asked when I work with new artists, and having worked with artists like Daniel Avery and Bontan and a number of other people, Sasha, Junkie XL, the question's always been, well, what comes first, the drums or the music? And the real answer to that question is, well, it depends. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Now, we know what we're trying to achieve in this particular masterclass, which is we're going to write some techno. So it makes sense for us to start with the drums. Now, in other genres of music that maybe are a little more progressive or a little more melodic, then it makes sense for the musical elements to come first. And then we can wrap drums around that main musical idea. Whereas we're actually looking for the drums here to fulfill the role of a melodic idea. So how does that work, and how do we get a drum groove that really, really punches through? So what I thought I would do here, I would give you a bit of an insight into what my sound design and drum groove kind of, how can I put it, my approach is. And the main approach is really of being very, very consciously aware in the moment of exactly what I'm doing, so I can then capture and retain for future use the ideas that I'm coming up with. So this might appeal to a lot of you guys, because I can probably say for a lot of people in the room, you've probably got a lot of ideas across a lot of different sessions in your DAW of choice, whether it's Ableton, Cubase, Logic, whatever. And for me, the big moment of being able to move forward with a lot of these ideas was having an organised system to be able to just drop whatever I need in at the moment. So it's making it a very modular and a very easy to execute kind of system. So what you'll probably see here on the screen is that in my Ableton places, I have obviously a lot more folders, because as we probably know, you can add custom folders. And I do a couple of different things a little bit differently because of the way my workflow is, but the main thing that I've got here is my own custom library of sounds. So a lot of people will go on about using things like templates for music creation, and that's a very valid way of doing things. I work slightly differently in that I like to, rather than have a template, because I always feel a little limited by it if I've got a template which opens up with 32 channels of synths that I'm using all the time and that kind of thing. I always feel like I'll end up just making the same track over and over again. What I prefer is to have a lot more flexibility. I prefer to have the tools in my browser here where I can just combine different elements from different tracks that I've written. Maybe I've engineered something for a client that I really like, and maybe I'll retain the drum sounds or the bass, etc. So if I fold that away for a second, you'll see exactly what I mean. So I've got a number of different categories. And as I write tracks, and also as I do dedicated sound design as a separate process away from creating tracks, which I think is a very important thing to do, I like to be able to have you know, a bit of free time in my schedule every week to basically just have a competition with myself to make the weirdest noise. And the computer's involved as well at that point as well. Trust me, I'm not just sat there doing fart noises with my mouth. So I like to have that freedom, that free time to develop new sounds, and I think that's really important because we do get a little bit too caught up in, I've got to finish a track, I've got to write tracks, I've got to get them out there, I've got to get them signed, you know, I've got to do all of this stuff. So it's an important thing to kind of approach, really. So what I like to do in this kind of situation is, again, as I go and through sound design and production, I retain a lot of these sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you what my kind of process is for, you know, getting that kind of sound, and also what I would do to then save that sound, and I'll give you an idea about where that can potentially sort of end up. So what I like to do is, you can see here I've got a group here, I'm just going to rename that drums, and what I have is, again, an overall group where I've got a machine and I've got a drum rack. Now, where I like to work is slightly different where machine is concerned, because not only do I like to use the drum synths in machine quite a lot, I also like to then get the sounds out of machine as quickly as I can. More because I like the workflow of the drum rack within Ableton, and it allows me to be a lot more flexible within the architecture of Ableton. If I'm using a slightly different DAW, some of you in the room may use Logic, for example, it's a slightly different approach where I'll actually retain as much of the production of the drum groove in the machine software as much as possible, and then save the kits within machine. But as I say, a lot of people will rely on the sample library that comes with machine, and that's great, and it's a fantastic library, and you'll see me using some of those sounds later on, but in a slightly different way. But one of the things I like to do where the sound design of drums, etc. is concerned, is I actually quite like to use the drum synths. So in terms of how that works, if I just move this on over here, you'll just see the kick generator, which is a great big kit, and you can get some amazing kick drums out of it. And I like to be able to work in this fashion purely because it gives me a lot more control over every aspect of the kick. So what I'm going to do here, I'm actually just going to roll out of there for a second, and I'm just going to put a very simple, even just a one kick pattern in a bar, not a problem. I'm just going to set that tempo a little bit more appropriately to about 125, and from there just head back in, and we'll be able to kind of see things a little bit more. So if I just hit play there for a second and I just turn the volume up, just a general kind of 8080 kind of thing, and I like to move towards some of the other modes here, and Tronic is a really good aspect of that. So thank you very much.
This one.
Oh, thanks.
This is your microphone.
Yeah, I'm feeding back a little bit. Great. Okay, got that. So you can hear that a lot better now, and you can hear straight away it's kind of got that fairly techno-y kind of sound to it, but I want to be able to do more with it. And again, if I had to take the impact down, that's the click of the kick drum, and you'll hear straight away it's got that more meaty, slightly decayed kind of sound. And the great thing is as well is that I can then, say for example, bring the note down a little bit, just to repitch it. Quite good at G, and then I can change the decay. So I can make it quite a punchy kick, or I can really sustain it out. So from here I can really start to play around with, again, that pitch bend element, give it a bit more of a brutal initial kind of smack to it, and then from there I can start to really manipulate the sound with a couple of different aspects. And the main one that I like to use is I like to use a maximizer here. And what you'll get from this is now we're starting to really get into some quite aggressive territory. So, again, even though it's one kick right now, what I'm then going to do is move this out of machine as quickly as possible. And I don't know what I have to do in that, but I'll have to output it a slightly different way. Export audio, group 1, kick. Okay, so we'll just get that kick sample out of Ableton. I'm just going to, for ease of use, put it on my absolute mess of a desktop. Okay, export. Now from there, I'll just grab that kick, wherever it's put it. Let's just look at that again. The wonders of modern technology. Laptop, desktop, DanceFair kick. New one, nowhere to be seen. Double Techno piano, it's a different sound. Today it's in the folder. God. You can tell I was on a flight at 7 AM this morning, can't you? Right, so let me just pop this into Ableton. I'll just pop that into an audio track for now. And then, again, I've got a drum rack here straight away, and then I can drop that in. So, what I'll do from here is then go down the route of creating a pattern within Ableton's kick, within the drum rack here. And again, I'll just deactivate machine for now until we need it for the next sound. And you can just hear straight away, it's got, you know, a nice kind of resonance, and I can control it. Again, with the pitch if I need to. Now, from here, what I would look to do is get that real classic kind of like reverb, sidechain kind of kick going. Which again, a lot of techno has that kind of iconic sound now. So the next thing I'm going to do, I've actually got, again, because I'm making tracks like this all the time, I've made a very, very important habit of saving all of my presets into my own library. So what it allows me to do is I can just drag and drop, and conveniently my next talking point comes up, is this, again, completely preset, custom reverb for techno kicks. So what's going on here is I've got a reverb, and you can probably see here, if I just zoom in a little bit, if I can do that, no I can't. Down here, you can see on the input processing that it's basically cutting everything down to 122 with a high cut or a low pass filter. So what that does is obviously give you a lot of that low kind of sub rumble. So if I just throw this in, hit send, you start getting that real kind of low end rumble. Now if I was to solo that on its own, you can hear that it's a very, very solid kind of low-end sound. Now, on top of that, you can see the Nicky Romero Kickstart plugin is producing that kind of off-kick kind of pattern. So if I was to turn that off, you'll be able to hear it's just almost like filtered white noise. Whereas if I use something like a sub-bass chain curve on the Nicky Romero, it allows me to have a bit more of a rhythm to it. And again, if I pair that with the kick, and that's just with a 1-bar loop. So I can then just up the velocities here. And now we're really getting into where we need to be. So the next thing I'll do is maybe start populating the drum rack with a few more interesting sounds. So there may well be some little kind of clicks and pops and some interest going that we'll be able to work with. Now what you'll see here is that I'm actually using the Machine 2 library, and I've located it and added it as a folder on my Ableton places. Now the reason for doing that is because I really love, as I said before, the actual library within Machine, but I also like the workflow of the drum rack. So what I do here is I actually just add in the samples from Machine directly into a drum rack. So again, we might actually start with some toms, just to give us a bit of interest here. So again, I can just search there for maybe 808 toms. And again, the search function in Ableton is great for this. So actually, something like that would be perfect. Great. So I can drop that straight in. Now, if a sample like this is a little bit on the low side, I can obviously turn it up here, but I can also normalize values by right-clicking on the sample here. So what I can do then is going between these tom sounds. So again, if we were to just even see here is I'm just using a 1 bar loop at the moment, and that's obviously going to restrict us quite a lot in terms of how we move forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the loop. As you can see, as I hit the duplicate loop button, it's going to go from a bar to 2 to 4, and I like to work in 8 bar sections, especially where arrangement's concerned, and it gives me a lot more room to be able to work around the different drum sounds. And this is where the workflow of the drum rack really comes into its own, because I can really see all in one place exactly where all of my drum hits are coming in and out. So I can then be a lot more complex and a lot more precise about where I drop certain sounds. This is a little workflow trick I like quite a lot, where I never ever delete a MIDI note. I always just deactivate it, because later on when I get into an arrangement, it's very quick for me to be able to move and reactivate those notes, and it gives me even more variation. So obviously the next stage in the process, we're going to look at some hi-hats and some claps and how we can kind of go and place that. Before we kind of get into the processing of it, maybe add in some compression, maybe add in some distortion, things like that as well. But my main principle in the way I work with a lot of people and the way I work with my own music is the raw materials have to be absolutely right before we even reach to the process. So we don't EQ or compress anything until we know the sounds are absolutely right. And that means it's much easier to get the results that we're after, because then we're not dependent so much on the processes and the compression and everything else to give us that sound. We're actually optimizing what we already have. So we're taking something good and making it amazing, rather than taking something okay and then using some processing to make it sound kind of acceptable and a bit average. So from here, we'll look at some more top-end stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back into Machine now, and you'll just see it's a bit of a process of going back and forth. So I'll just solo that for a second. And what you'll get is, I'll just take that down for a second. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a percussion drum synth. Now the reason why I do that is because I'm going to get some shakers going here. And this is actually my favourite part of all the drum synths in Machine. I really like being able to work this way with it. So what you actually have here is a performer. So this will give you very realistic sounding shakers with all the variation that we could need. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one, and this is going to be more of a loop, so you'll see me use this as more of an audio clip, and you'll hear it straight away. So what I can then do is just tune up, choose the filter. We'd add some shade and some swing to that as well. We can even add a little bit of an offset there. Okay, now if we play that along with the sounds that you can get incredibly quickly. So from here, again, I'm just going to export, and I'll do that slightly differently. This can be quite handy, this dialogue, for you Machine users out here. If you can actually go into the individual sounds and select which ones you would like to output. So I'm just going to do that to the desktop again. Again, that'll probably be in a folder somewhere. Again, I can just throw that straight in. Or I would if I could. There you go. It's one of the little bugs I've got with Machine about, you know, you get it into a place on the screen and it's a bit difficult to actually navigate where you're dropping stuff into because of the way they changed it. So if I do that and then drop that in. Now, again, this gives us an opportunity to work with the sample again in the context of our drum group and again as an audio loop. So what I would do to a shaker loop like this now, if I was to just... Kickstart can really aid the groove of a shaker like this, and again it can actually lead to some really nice, interesting complex variations in what otherwise could be quite a boring or quite linear situation with the shaker. Now, the thing that I want to try and get across here is it's not about having a lot of things going on, it's about what you do with the things that you have. So therefore, if you've only got like 4 or 5 things going on in a track, and those things are really solid and they really work really well, then it's great, because then those elements can take up more space, they can be further optimized, and they can really work quite well without being crowded by lots of other layers. So one of the things you'll see with the rest of this masterclass is how little I'm actually using in order to get the sound. So from here, shaker as a backing, I can then utilize another kind of technique that I like to use, where I'll actually use a synth for this type of situation. There's a reason for that, because I actually quite like the whole principle of using noise in order to shape sounds. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually utilize this particular sound here, and I'll just do that. Let's just put it way too high there. So again, it's just a general kind of sound here. And what I'll do is I'm actually going to use a white noise there. So again, what I can do is I can just select this, and I'm just going to put it on the offbeats. And again, it'll just sound like a blast of white noise at the moment, but what we can do is just really shave and sculpt this sound down. So if I was to just solo that particular sound, you'll hear what I mean. And again, it's just using an envelope and maybe a bandpass filter. So I even just turn that up a little bit. And again, using resonance, that'll just shape the curve a little bit more. And again, if I just play that with just a kick. Focusing on the operator for a second as well, once more, one of the things we can do is add in a simple delay. Now this is one of my favourite little tricks when I want to add even more groove. I like to add in, on the left hand side, 3/16 notes delay, and I also like to add in 1/16 note on the right hand side. It can swap, it doesn't really matter which side's which. And again, I'll add a little bit of feedback here around about 25%. And what that does is give me the ability to almost make this whole pattern a lot more complex. So if I was to just hit play, and then add in the dry and wet, just adds that little bit more groove. eighth note. Again, what you'll notice is the reason why this sounds groovy and why everything's working together, it's actually to do with the shape of the sounds, the envelopes of them, and again, the time that goes into actually selecting these sounds in the first place. So, again, using a ride on the eighth note, very classic kind of technique. And from here, again, I'll just add in another little kickstart, just to add a little bit more groove to it. And again, pull the decay of that ride into the drum groove. Pitching on rides is one of the key things you need to get right in a techno record, and one of the great things about detuning rides like this, it just seems to get more aggressive the lower you go, up until about -4 or -5 semitones I found with this particular type of ride. And again, the more kind of light you get, the higher up. It just adds a bit of a lighter touch, but it gives the track an extra gear. So again, you could actually use alternating rides that have two different pitches, or again, another classic technique is to actually do pitch bending on the ride itself, so it almost becomes a melodic element within the track itself. I get into some more specific ways of processing. What I'll actually do here is I like to add things on the group itself, but I also like to add things to obviously the individual sounds as well. So, first thing I'll actually put on here is an auto filter. Now, one of the things I really like about the auto filter in live is the fact that in the later versions you've actually got these filter circuits which emulate certain types of classic hardware. And I've become particularly fond of the MS2 mode. Again, with that little bit of drive, just going back to the kick on its own for a second, you'll hear exactly what I mean. Just go back to just the kick on its own. It just really brings everything out even further. But what I'm going to use this filter for is just more for a auto filter. Again, because of that drive technique, you'll notice I've actually removed the drive here. I'll add this on the entire group. Sometimes it's only 1 dB or 2 dB depending on what I'm going to do, but I also will, obviously use my ears at this particular moment. Now, another element is I really like a lot of the processes that Native Instruments use or release, and I think they're really underrated because they're kind of overlooked in the scheme of all the really, sexy other things that they do, like Machine and Reactor and Massive and FM8. But this is probably one of my favourite audio processors, and it'll become very clear as to why now. reverb here from another one of my settings, and it's actually an adaptation of the one that I've been using for the kick reverb. And again, this is kind of a good example of how I organise my library of sounds, where I like to have everything saved into audio effect racks, instrument racks, drum racks that I can then call upon later on, but I also like to have everything set up so I can immediately access the settings that I want the most. So in the moment, I'm always thinking, right, well, if that's a good sound, let's build the macros, let's get the control. Again, in my studio back in Liverpool in the UK, I have a push, 2 and a machine either side of me. So I've got ultimate control over everything, and everything's there at the touch of a button or the touch of a rotary control. So again, what I'm doing here, this is a more high-end reverb that I use, almost like a kind of a riser. And you can see I've actually cut everything from 610 Hertz down on the EQ8. And again, a really, really large reverb decay time. Everything again set to macros. So again, another kickstart, and again, another little effect on an auto filter here. So it gives you the ability to create a bit of tension with the drums I already have, especially with the top end stuff like the rides and everything else. So you'll be able to hear this quite evidently in a second. To machine drum synths here. And the great thing about the way the drum synths work is that you can get a really great, very controllable form of 808, 909 style hi-hats. Very flexible on pitch and on decay as well. And again, the colour, you can just really get it right for the track. So again, before I'm even moving things into this whole kind of nascent production that I've got going on here, everything is being tuned in line with everything else. And that's really, again, where you get the groove, you get that solidity in the project, and everything seems to work well, and everything becomes more than the sum of their parts. So, So again, I'll just export that to the desktop again, and rather than struggling with that window, go to the percussion again. Drop that there for a second, and then I can drop that into our drum rack. Now, again, what you'll see in a moment is just going to move that over there. What you'll see in a moment is how I organise everything here within this particular rack, and how I'm going to go about gaining a bit more control over everything, so then I can save this as a rack that I can call upon with various grooves later on. So from here, again, same as before, I'm just going to drop in with a pattern like so. So to sort of bring things around to the end a little bit, I'll then assign macros. From there, I can assign the filter to macro 1. So again, I'll just call that kick filter. And from here, I can then go into a lot more detail about what I would like. Now, the main thing that will be of use to us here is to actually map the decay from our noise-based closed hat, so I can call that closed hat decay. And it means I've got control from here. I can even color code things. Now, from here, again, I can have the whole thing centered in like so. The whole, everything I need to control, maybe ride pitches, everything else, dropped in on macros. And from here, I've got two options. I've got the ability to take this drum rack and save it from here. Now, the advantage of doing it from here, so for example, I call that DanceFair Rack 1, you'll see the way it saves. So it's actually saved itself as its own session. And I can go into that session, and within that, you'll actually see we've got the clip that we've used here in order to generate the pattern. And I can even preview it from the browser. So even if I was to go into an entirely new project, I can then drag and drop this entire drum rack in, and this may well go with a drone that I've created. It may well go with an idea for, you know, a bass pattern that I've written previously. And it allows everything to start getting really modular, and you can really start to interchange lots of different ideas to see how things match. Now, on top of that, this is also another way that you can develop a signature style of your own, because it allows you to very easily recycle many different sounds that effectively become part of your palette as an artist. You know, we've all got those artists that we instantly recognize their sound as soon as we hit play on a record, or we hear it in a club. It's like, oh, that's whatever artist you want to, you know, put in that box. It's instant, you can hear it straight away. Now, this is how you do it for yourself. And that's a really important point, because I think a lot of new artists or developing producers, they get a little bit hung up on using the same kick drum over and over again. They get a bit hung up on, you know, oh, I've got to change it up every time. And actually the opposite is kind of true. Yes, it's good to vary things, but you need certain sounds that are going to be your iconic sounds. And this is kind of how you develop it. So thanks for bearing with me at the beginning with our little technical issue, and thanks for your time and your attention on this little masterclass about techno drum grooves. My next masterclass is going to be about something completely different. I'm going to go more into sound design, so I may well go into drones, arpeggiated stuff. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave it open and we'll see where we go. So it's going to be here at 4:30. So hope to see some of you back here then. I'm here tomorrow as well, doing the same 2 titled masterclasses, but they're actually going to be about different things again. So I'm going to try and keep it really varied for everyone who's going to be here both days. So if you've got any questions, give us a shout. I'm going to be hanging around afterwards. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.